1,088,000 pounds. That is the number Arkansas printed on a single transport permit, the only million-pound load the state has ever cleared to roll on its highways. Just after 9 on a summer morning, it pulled onto a 2-lane road at the speed of a man walking his dog. 362 feet of trucks, steel and tires, longer than a football field. Police cruisers front and rear, utility crews ahead, lifting power lines out of the way. This is how truck drivers transport the biggest heavy equipment oversized loads in America. Federal law caps a standard rig at 80,000 pounds gross. This transport weighed more than 13 of those. Same asphalt, same bridges. So the real question was never horsepower. It is why the road underneath did not fail. And the answer is not a bigger truck. Before we get there, one more number that reads like a mistake. On a Superload in Washington state, a crew looked at a 460,000-pound transformer and decided the only way to move it was to make the whole transport heavier. Not slightly heavier, almost double. That decision was correct, and the reason behind it is the best-kept open secret in heavy haul. Start with what oversize even means at this level. A load goes oversize when it passes 8 feet 6 inches wide or 13 feet 6 inches tall in most states. That still moves every single day with a permit and a banner. The word that changes everything is superload. In Arkansas alone, the state wrote more than 1,000 superload permits in 1 year, and there the word starts at 180,000 pounds. Most of those roll through quietly, and nobody outside the industry ever hears about them. The million-pound transformer was different because at that weight the job stops being a trucking problem and becomes a civil engineering problem that happens to have a driver in it. Read how that Arkansas transport was built, and the engineering is written right on the pavement. 1 truck pulled from the front, 2 more pushed from behind. That part most people expect. What almost nobody expects is the trailer hooked to the very back that carried nothing at all. It had one job, braking. When a million pounds starts to roll on a downgrade, the tractor up front is not going to hold it. And the crew knew that before they ever turned a key. So they bolted extra brakes onto the tail of the transport like a runaway ramp they could bring along for the ride. The cargo itself, a 454,000-pound auto transformer, rode on a trailer that spreads weight the way a snowshoe spreads a boot. Modern dual-lane trailers run 2 parallel rows of axles, and on units like the Goldhover models working across North America, the deck can widen itself from about 14 feet out to 20 feet while it is rolling under full load, so one trailer can match whatever width each state on the route will permit. Steering, lifting, lowering, widening, all of it runs off a wireless remote. Keep that remote in mind. Before this is over, it will matter more than the trucks do. The permit conditions tell you exactly how nervous a state gets around 7 figures. 56 miles took 2 full days. The convoy was cleared to move only between 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, and it averaged 10 to 15 miles an hour. Not because the trucks could not go faster, because the bridges said so. A bridge feels a moving load harder than a standing one, and the slower the crossing, the closer the structure gets to seeing the static weight it was rated for. Every bridge on the route had been surveyed months ahead, and on the tightest spans the transport crossed dead center, alone on the deck, at little more than idle. None of that shows up on the permit itself. Before the first tire turned, engineers had run the numbers on every bridge, every culvert, and every stretch of pavement along all 56 miles. One structure that fails the math does not slow the job down. It reroutes it, sometimes by 100 miles or more, because there is no such thing as backing a million pounds out of a dead end. Troopers closed intersections ahead of the convoy. Crews measured overhead clearances down to the inch, because a signal head or a low line does not move for anyone. By the time the public ever saw the transport, the hard part of the work was already 2 seasons old. Quick thing before we keep going. This channel exists for one reason: to put the work these drivers do where people can actually see it. Most folks will never inch a million pounds of steel across a rated bridge with an entire state watching to understand what it costs. If you think that deserves to be seen, subscribing is how it stays visible. That is the whole ask. Now back to it. The remote. On the biggest transports, the driver in the front tractor is not fully steering the load. He sets the pace and picks the line. The rear of the trailer is steered on its own hydraulics, often by an operator walking beside it with that wireless box in his hands, swinging dozens of tires through a corner the tractor cleared seconds earlier. Those rear axle sets can crab sideways, pivot through an intersection, and thread a transport longer than a city block around a turn that was designed for a pickup. On paper, one man drives the truck. In reality, the move belongs to a crew, and the man walking with the remote carries as much of that load as the man holding the wheel. And this scales further than most people think. In June of 2020, the heaviest load ever to cross Nevada highways crept out of Las Vegas in the dark of early morning. The cargo was a 770-ton reactor pressure vessel out of the San Onofre nuclear plant in California, bound 345 miles for a disposal site in Utah, most of it on plain two-lane road. The full transport came to 2.4 million pounds. It took 6 heavy Class 8 tractors to move it, and here's the detail worth handing to the next driver you talk to. Only 2 of them pulled, 4 pushed from behind. At those weights, pushing beats pulling, because a pushing truck plants its drive axles into the pavement instead of unloading them, and planted rubber is the only thing that ever turns horsepower into motion. That single run took more than a year of planning and coordination across 3 states before a mile was driven. Route studies, bridge checks, agencies signing off one after another down the line. The driving was the short part of the job. Which brings us to the question this whole video has been circling. How does a road system built around an 80,000-pound limit survive 2.4 million without cracking apart? It survives because the road never actually feels the full number. The federal bridge formula barely cares about gross weight. It cares about weight per axle and the distance between those axles. Stretch a transport long enough, add enough axle lines, and no slice of pavement or a bridge deck ever carries more than a legal bite at any one moment. That is the real reason the Arkansas move ran 362 feet. The transformer was nowhere near that long. The transport was stretched on purpose because in heavy haul, length is not the problem. Length is the tool. The biggest loads on Earth do not beat the bridge formula. They obey it so precisely that 1 million pounds can cross a county bridge, and the structure never notices that anything unusual passed over it. Once you see that, the world record stops sounding like fantasy. The heaviest road load Guinness has ever recognized was a desalination evaporator moved in Saudi Arabia in 2012, 4,891 tons riding on 172 axle lines. Call it close to 10 million pounds, moved down a road by spreading it so thin that the ground agreed to hold it. Every one of those axle lines is the same trick American crews run under transformers in Arkansas and reactor vessels in Nevada, just multiplied until the numbers stop sounding real. Which leaves that Washington crew and the decision that sounds insane right up until it becomes obvious. The transformer weighed 460,000 pounds. The route ran 47 miles of state highway on a 144-foot trailer riding 48 axles, 1 truck pulling and 2 pushing. And the math showed the pulling tractor would spin its tires long before the load ever broke loose. The weight of the cargo was never the problem. The weight on the drive tires was. So the crew stacked on concrete blocks until the transport totaled nearly 950,000 pounds, close to double the transformer alone, and pressed the rubber into the pavement hard enough to bite. 2 nights later, at 15 miles an hour, the whole thing rolled in on schedule. That is the part nobody tells you about the biggest loads in America. Past a certain point, weight is the grip, weight is the brake, and weight is the plan. These crews stopped fighting gravity a long time ago. They put it on the payroll.